lade, but you got it now, go party. Oi, me lodi, but you got it now, go shady nation. Baby, money, mo confeto, and maybe about to.
In the People's Paradise, it's Unico Radio International, Cross River Estate, Nigeria, 103.5 FM. Education, information, and entertainment.
For the very best in music, information, entertainment, and education. Stay locked onto Unicool Radio International, 103.5 FM.
The saying goes that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Yes, good morning, Malabar. It's Malabar versus my amazing people in Calabar and, of course, beyond. The time is 6 minutes past the hour of 11 a.m. on the DOT, and you are on to the Listeners Library right here on Unica Radio International 103.5 FM. I remain your humble host, the Queen of the Airwaves, Elizabeth Auger, and I am so excited to guide you through another episode of growth, literary adventure, and of course, academic fun. Like we started last week, today we continue with a book that unlocks our very own history. Yes, tonight we are looking at the part 2 of Chinua Achebe's There Was a Country, a personal history of Biafra. For those just joining us this week, last week was all about part 1, where Chinua Achebe walked us through his early life and the hope of Nigeria's independence in 1960. Yes, we talked about the anthem, the flag, the belief that we had arrived. Part 2 is where that dream cracks. Yes, this chapter is more about the Nigerian Revolution. And if you listen close, 1966 is actually talking to us in 2026. I'm not going to be going into detail yet. Like our culture, we have a culture on this show. We usually go on a short musical break after this segment to give you a moment or two to grab your seat, grab your pen, grab your popcorn, because yes, this is an academic focused show, and as such you need to be in your learning position, your very comfy position, so that your brain will actually know you're about to learn, but learn in a very fun-filled way, in a way you feel comfortable, not the mathematics standard. No. So I'll be leaving you with Great Nation by Timi Dakolo. This song actually carries more of the information contained in the book. we are looking at today. So stay very close to your radio set. Do not go anywhere because I'll be right back with the very deep, extremely deep gist for today. us a lovely welcome. Yes, this is the Listeners Library right here on Unica Radio International 103.5 FM. And I remain your very humble host, or you can call me the Queen of the Airwaves. Yes, Elizabeth Auger. Every Saturday means literary adventure, and today is no different. Like I said earlier, we are going into the part 2 of There Was a Country, a personal history of Biafra by our very own legend, Chinua Achebe. Now, before we go into the conversation proper, I would like to ask a question. Yes, a very deep question. A question for you at home, you on the road, you just in your very Saturday element, like very Saturday element. Someone explained what that means to me recently, and I am going to be explaining it to you later on the show. But you on your Saturday element, this is a question for you as well. So, it is election preparation period. Yes. INEC, religious leaders, civil societies, everybody is telling Nigerians right now, go get your PVC, come out and vote next year. Everywhere you go get your PVC, come out and vote next year. Very good. Now, that is such a good advice. I am explaining this so that my question will land on a very solid ground. Now, let's ponder. With the state of insecurity in Nigeria right now, let me now ask plainly, without any sentiments. This is a very logical question. Would you advise yourself or your younger ones to go out and vote? Emphasis on the word out, O-U-T. I'll ask that again. With the state of insecurity in Nigeria, would you advise yourself or your younger ones to go out and vote next year? It's a very simple question, right? And I'm asking because we've seen it. Bandits, we are speaking of bandits on the Kaduna Abuja road, unknown gunmen in the southeast, kidnappers in Ekiti, abduction of how many kids, whole communities in Plateau displaced weeks to an election. So the question is not about civic duty, it's about security, it's about society. So with the state of insecurity in this country right now, will you advise yourself or your loved ones to go out, emphasis on out, and vote next year? Ponder on it. And just to be real, we are not talking about voters' apathy or anything here. We are talking about fear. You know that fear when you want to step out of your house, but you are afraid because you are hearing stray bullets every. You know the election periods. You know what election periods are like. That is what we are talking about. So I ask again: is democracy worth dying for? Because in this country, it seems we actually die for democracy. So is democracy actually worth dying for? That is a simple question I'm asking. I'll be opening up the phone line, so feel free to join the conversation. Your questions, your comments, your thoughts will always be treated with so much honor. So the phone line is 0809 444 4058. I'll take that again. 0809 444 4058. Would you advise yourself or your younger ones to go out and vote in 2027? It's a simple question. It's not about getting the PVC and then putting it in your wallet because there's some kind of movement restriction if you do not have your voter's card. Are you actually going to go out and vote? Would you advise yourself or your children that are up to the voting age to go out of your house some parents literally lock up their children those periods. So are you going to be advising yourself or your children to go out and vote in 2027 with the state of insecurity in Nigeria? So for now, let's go right into the part 2 of There Was a Country, a Personal History of Biafra by Chinwe Achebe. Yes, the very godfather of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. So, part 2 covers 1966 into early 1967, and we all know what 1966 stands for in Nigeria. Okay, just like in London, you cannot say you do not know what 1666 stands for. In Nigeria, you cannot say you do not know what 1966 stands for. So that was when we had the first coup d'etat. Yes, that took lives, of course. So it's a period in history nobody should forget in a hurry. So Chinua Achebe said Nigeria is 6 years into independence and hope is dying. You can see when hope started dying in Nigeria 6 years into independence. That was around 1966. Else, why will you be having a coup after less than a decade of gaining your independence? Are you trying to say that you cannot even rule yourself, you cannot lead yourself? Okay, let's hear what Chinua Achebe has to say in There Was a Country. 2 military coups, not 1, 2. Mass killings of Igbos in the north and the rest of them. This is the part of history I do not really like to read. Anytime I go through any page or I'm flipping pages that talk about 1966, 1967, I just feel very bad. It usually brings this I do not want to remember. I wasn't there, but you do not need to be there to feel it, because you are human. You don't have to be there to feel it. By mere hearing it and just imagining it, you can feel the whole thing already. I will say without an apology that it is actually in the part 2 of this book that Chinua Achebe stopped being a novelist. He was no longer writing as an author, as a writer, as a novelist. Okay, we have a call. We have a caller already. Let's take this call.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Obadi Jerry. I'm calling from Calabar.
Okay, Jerry, thanks for joining us. So, what do you have to say about our question for today?
Well, I just wanted to say that the question you asked about if I will be asking my loved ones, so myself personally going to vote in the coming elections, I think my answer will be yes to that, because I believe politics affects every sphere of life, and if we really want to make a difference in what happens coming from the east after that, I think we need to affect the general decisions going to the politics that will be in our country from next year. So
Okay.
I feel it's important and it's imperative that we all go out to vote. We all share. We all decide who rules and who governs our country in our votes. So that is my future vision.
Okay, so our concern here is the state of insecurity in Nigeria right now. People fear anything that will involve more than 5 persons gathering, because we know what happens when people gather in this country right now, or when we have crowd. So what would be your advice, or what's your take on that? Will you still advise people you care about to go out, form a crowd in their attempt to vote or cast their vote for their candidates next year?
Yes, the security challenges we have are quite they're very it's worrisome and very disturbing. But I believe we owe a duty to our country and for the generations to come after us. I feel if necessary, we should sacrifice something to put in the better leadership that can make some changes. So, but I know that security will be a problem, but I feel we just have to do what we can in our best little way to contribute to national development in our decision making. So, that's my submission.
Okay, thank you, Jerry, for joining the show. Thank you for your input, and do well to continue listening.
Thank you.
Okay, so our caller Jerry said he believes, regardless the state of insecurity, regardless the major threats against human lives and properties right now, we should all go out and seek out, count our votes. If we want to change anything, that if we want to change the state of insecurity, it starts by going out to vote. So going out or jeopardizing your security is the price you have to pay for trying to change the system, for trying to make a better Nigeria, right? Do well to call in your opinion if you have a special question for Chinua Achebe, of course, because he is the one piloting this conversation today, not me. I'm only here as a lover of books, as a lover of history, as a lover of Nigeria. Yes, of course, I'm a Nigerian. I love Nigeria. I'm a very patriotic citizen. And at the end of this show, I'm going to be telling you if I would advise you to go out and vote or not. So you better stay very close to this conversation. So, the first point in part 2 of There Was a Country was simply Chinua Achebe painting a picture of 1966. The date, the terror of the Igbo men in the north trying to find their way to where they should call home, where they did not even know because of the coup. Now, if you ask me, what are the main messages or what are the main points from this particular line that we should get today? Now, let's take our brain away from history and come to Nigeria today, like currently, 2026 Nigeria. You know that feeling that Chinua Achebe was trying to describe, right? Being unsafe on the road because of who you are. Feeling unsafe because you're Igbo, feeling unsafe because you're Yoruba, feeling unsafe because you're Fulani, feeling unsafe because you're Hausa, feeling unsafe because you are Efik. That is the exact feeling Chinua Achebe was trying to describe in this part of part 2. It's not 1966 anymore, but the fear is still very familiar. Does this mean that we are reliving history? Or does this mean that there is a pattern that we just cannot stop following in this country when it gets to government, when it gets to leadership, when it gets to economy, when it gets to education? Does this mean there's a pattern, there's a laid out pattern? Yes, take for example highway insecurity. If you trace Abuja to Kaduna, Lokoja to Okene, if you trace Enugu, Port Harcourt expressways, still you will see kidnappings. In fact, across Nigeria, we are just so lucky, somehow lucky in the south that we do not record so much kidnapping, like mass adoptions like we have in the north. Many travelers now check the ethnicity of their drivers, yes, and fellow passengers before a trip. Yes, today you get to a transit company, you look at the driver, maybe after boarding that vehicle, you look at the driver and maybe it's one Muslim man. The thoughts that will start coming to your head is nothing good. Are you sure? Or you must turn around, check your fellow passengers. If you notice you have more than 2 or 3 Muslims on that vehicle, let me ask you a very subtle question. Will you continue with that journey, or you rather opt to change vehicle? That is what is happening right now. In 1966, the Igbos started feeling unsafe because they were seen as threat as well. They started going after them. So in their attempt to run from the north to somewhere safe, they'll get to the road now to board vehicles. If they discover that majority of the passengers on that vehicle are not Igbos, they will not want to board the vehicle because it might mean they are taking them to their death. They want to kill them in group. We bring that back to today. You will get to a park, maybe a motor park, or maybe you get to seaports, or to an airport, you want to travel, and you discover that majority of the passengers on that vehicle, on that plane, on that boat are actually Muslims. The first thing that will come to your head is bandits. Why? Why do we have to check the ethnicity of people before we even move with them now? That is just the sad reality. Let's proceed. If you read through the lines of part 2, you'll see where Chinua Achebe was describing how his family had to flee Lagos. Right. Come back to today. IDP camps. Right. Over 3 million Nigerians are displaced today, following statistics. From Borno to Benue to Zamfara, you name the rest. So what is the difference between 2026 and 1966? In 1966, Chinua Achebe's family are key character for today. That's why I'm using him. He wasn't the only one. Not only his family, Nigerians, Igbos had to flee places like Lagos to where they did not even know. They became strangers in their own country. And we are reliving that. Most of us, majority of us now, are more like strangers in our countries. If you ask me, I would say those in the north, if they had an alternative, they will actually flee the north right now. Like with the state of things, they will flee the north. So aren't they strangers in Nigeria? They are Nigerians, but they've literally become strangers in their own country. So let's follow this pattern with Chinua Achebe. Another point, I would say the Japa pressure. Yes, 2026, the Japa pressure. Doctors, is it tech workers, is it teachers, all leaving Nigeria monthly. The trigger is not just pay anymore. Before we all say it's greed, out of greed, they are going after greener pasture and the rest of them. Today, it is not all about the pay. It's about safety, belonging, and the sense that the country won't protect you economically, socially, and otherwise. Why won't you flee? If you have the opportunity, why won't you? Further, another major point in part 2 of There Was a Country, A Personal History of Biafra, is the point that Chinua Achebe say is something he highlighted as the Igbo coup meet. Like, the coup d'etat of 1966 was labeled as an Igbo coup, and that was extremely wrong according to him. But he did not just claim, he brought receipt, he brought evidence to make each and every one of us believe. He said the January coup got branded as an Igbo coup. That label is false, right? Firstly, the leader, Nzegu, of course, was Igbo but raised in the north. If you trace it, he spoke Hausa, right? The plotters were not all Igbos, if you trace very well. Secondly, they killed northern and western leaders all together and spared some Igbos like Zeke. So you will not say it was an Igbo coup. Thirdly, most officers killed were actually Northern. Right? So the narrative stuck. Northern radio said Igbos were celebrating. The lie furthered the pogroms, if you can trace back to that particular era. Something like, we became strangers in our own country overnight. Okay, I do not want to divert from what I am saying. I actually wanted to point at one function that the media actually plays in either informing or misinforming the public. And there's something very powerful about that, like information or misinformation, the role they play, the effect of one simple information or simple misinformation can actually last for a century. And we have one that is playing out in Nigeria currently, but that is not our conversation for today. That was 1966. Now let's see the effect of this particular myth today. Now, if you notice, instead of trying to figure out what, why, and perhaps when was this coup d'etat actually planned, people were focusing on who, but not much emphasis on that. My point is, sometimes instead of focusing on the cause of an action, we focus on the people. And sometimes that is propaganda, like a big act of propaganda, and that is actually a weapon. Sometimes you notice that if something is going wrong in government, the information will get to us. Instead of we trying to figure out why is this happening, the next thing we will hear one leader coming on screen, coming on television, coming on the national TV to point a finger at a rival who is the cause. The blames, they just start shifting blames from one seat to the other, and we all get carried. We forget to even question why this is happening in the first place. So the weapon here was actually propaganda, trying to label the coup as an Igbo move or whatever they called it, turning a military act into an ethnic plot. Chinua Achebe is saying that the coup of 1966 was actually a military act, not an ethnic business. So they succeeded in making it seem like it was an ethnic clash or a cultural clash. So their weapon actually worked for them, and that is propaganda. Another important thing to note here, or lessons to learn from this particular part where the coup was labeled as an Igbo ethnic clash, is that in this country we do a lot of blame shifting. Aside that, okay, I've already said ethnic profiling of crime. Everything is attributed to one ethnic group or the other. We do not really focus on the cause. We try to point fingers at the whom, and sometimes we spend decades trying to, before you know, the story dies down, no solution was preferred, and it just continued. Another point is blame shifting after tragedy, right? When a building collapses in Lagos, a building collapses in Calabar, a building collapses in Abuja or in Niger, the first fight online is often whose people did it, right? Not what could have been the structural cause that led to this collapse. Is who, whom, which ethnic group, which tribe. That is just a major problem. Okay, so before we actually move to the next part, which I would like to call the 3 flash points, because these are actually very sharp points, like an arrow pointed at somebody's heart. These were actually 3 flash points that Chinua Achebe made in part 2 of this book. Before we go into them, I would like us to go on a very short musical break to give you a moment or two to reflect not just on our question for today, but this part of the book so far. And when we are back, we'll go right into the 3 flashpoints in part 2 of There Was a Country by Chinua Achebe. Do not forget, this is the Listener's Library, brought to you by Unica Radio International, and I remain your very humble host, yes, the queen of the airwaves, Elizabeth Ogar. Stay locked onto your radio sets.
The People's Paradise. It's Unical Radio International. Cross River Estate, Nigeria. 103.5 FM. Education, information, and entertainment.
For the very best in music, information, entertainment, and education. Stay locked onto Unical Radio International. 103.5 FM.
Something bare ke bala ka letsi anthem na ke motho le di anthem ka ba binisa ka thata ba mpatla ke re aushem ke strinela o lady this bar and no rapetse ka thata that's why ana ke tsentse tlo that's why ke pusha thata so no yana ke muhle ka dipina tse di botepo a go dumelele o late gore ke binisa setšhaba ka dio tse no yana ke muhle ka dipina tse di botepo a go dumelele o late gore ke binisa setšhaba ka dio tse
People's Paradise. It's Unico Radio International. Cross River Estate, Nigeria. 103.5 FM. Education, information, and entertainment.
For the very best in music, information, entertainment, and education. Stay locked onto Unicool Radio International. 103.5 FM.
and I hope you liked it. That was actually picked with a lot of intention. So yeah, I picked that for a reason. If you're just joining us, okay, you're quite late, but do not worry. We're actually about to call it a day, but we are going to be continuing this particular conversation next week, so you do not have too much to miss, right? Like I said, I'm going to be giving the 3 key punch points that Chinua Achebe gave in part 2, but only looking at one today. Then from next week, we will continue from there. So Chinua Achebe points to 3 major failures that broke Nigeria. According to him, these are the 3 major problems that broke Nigeria. Each one actually rhymes with the problem today. The first point he made is leadership. He pointed at the leadership of Nigeria, right? According to him, General Ironsi did not punish the January coup plotters. Then Decree 34 abolished regions. Trace back. The North read that as Igbo domination. If I were the northern people, then I would have done the same thing. I'll actually just see it as Igbo domination. You cannot blame them. That was the picture painted. So if you ask me, how does that relate to today? I will say, look at things like security appointments. If service chiefs or police IGs are seen as skewed to one region, right, other zones read this as bias. And they start seeing them as being biased in all their operations. Let's say some offices is not by election, of course, it's simply by appointment. And when you continue appointing people from a particular region for reasons we do not know to occupy sensitive offices, how do you think I'm going to be seeing their operations or their decisions? Even the ones that are meant to favor me, I will see them as being biased because you were biased in the selection of these people in the first place. That is point number 1. Also, look at something like uneven prosecution. When you get to the court, right? Quick court rulings for some activists. If you have been following court proceedings in 2026, especially, and then some people, it takes years of adjournment for others accused of the same crime. And I keep asking myself, if you say that in Nigeria we operate democracy and in democracy there is supremacy of the law, blah blah blah, nobody is above the law, why do we have something like parliamentary immunity, where a head of state or head of this, a big person in office, will actually be sent to court, but you have to wait for years and years and years before any court result can be made concerning that person. And before you know, that person is already out of that office. It's been years, and before you know, the case is just dead and closed, and we all just go to sleep. We forget there was ever such a case. Why do we have it in as parliamentary immunity? Why do some persons have to be immune against the law per se, but some persons, you have to serve the law immediately, fair and square? That is actually very wrong. You also look at resource control debates. This is usually like the topic I love following online everywhere I go to. If you observe oil producing states and the non-oil producing states, you actually discover things that you do not want to discover. You hear sayings like, the old center is taking too much, this one is taking too little, this, that. When are these problems going to come to a simple, logical, or rational conclusion? That is the question I keep asking myself. So Chinua Achebe is saying that one of the 3 major problems that actually broke Nigeria is leadership. And today I'm saying, look at areas like security appointments, areas like uneven prosecution, areas like resource control debate. Won't you agree with Chinua Achebe that leadership was actually one of the first 3 things or few things that divided and broke Nigeria into pieces, into fragments that we are still trying to pick up and fix today? So, because of time, we are not going to be going into any other page of this book, but next week we are going to be diving right into part 3. But I would do well to finish the 3 key points in part 2. So, I think we will call it a wrap on this episode of the Listeners Library. It's actually a very lovely Saturday, and do well to have the most lovely weekend, and anticipate the next conversation we are going to be having. Do well to make preparations. Go out, get your voters card. Yes, I told you that I'm going to be giving you my own verdict at the end of the show. I'll advise that the only way we can make anything better, the only way we can boast that there's no longer insecurity in Nigeria in 2028, 2029 is if we risk it and go out and vote in 2027. Yes, else we are going to be repeating the pattern in 2031, 20 this, 20 that, and the rest. So get your PVCs and let's go out and vote. If you're underage, you better not go close to that place. Stay at home, obey the laws of the land. But if you're up to age, it is not all about going online to rant using hashtags, stop this, stop that. The only way your voice is heard is through that tiny card that looks like an ATM card. It is actually worth more than your ATM card, but you do not know, so you trivialize it. I'm not going anywhere, I would rather stay in my house. No, we should all go out to vote. So, my very dear listeners, my fellow readers, book addicts, of course, do well to read well, live better, one page at a time. This is the Listeners Library, brought to you by Unicorn Radio International, and I remain your very humble host. You can call me the Queen of the Airwaves. Yes, Elizabeth Auger. Do have a lovely weekend.